here to speak tonight. I know the way he makes it sound and the bio, it sounds like I've done these amazing things. I've only been in the Air Force about 6.5 years, so I promise I think I'm older than I look. So it's also absolutely surreal. Karilyn and I were talking about this. It's surreal for me to be standing out here, having heard the stories over the last 2 days of absolute valor and true piloting skills required in World War II. It is surreal for me to be standing up here speaking to you tonight. A little background about me. I grew up near Seattle, Washington as one of 7 kids, so chaos prepared me well for the Air Force, and especially working with cadets at the Air Force Academy. But it was fun, it was good. I was the only one to join the military and the only one to move away from home. Everyone else stayed in Western Washington. My mom finally accepted my decision, my lifestyle, so we're good there now. I know many of you that had Air Force careers or military experience can relate to that, moving around. I went to University of Portland. I am not an Academy grad. You do not have to be an Academy grad to work at the Air Force Academy, I found out. Wonderful, wonderful treat for us. So graduated from University of Portland back in 2012 and commissioned into the Air Force as a second lieutenant. Went straight to pilot training. I had maybe 2 weeks between commissioning and pilot training. I went to Vance Air Force Base in Enid, Oklahoma, where I flew the T-6, which is the acrobatic turboprop aircraft. And then, thankfully, I got to go to the T1 because I was not a huge fan of fast planes and high G maneuvers, which surprisingly, the sailplane we fly now can pull up to 7 Gs. You wouldn't expect it, but it can. So flew the T1, and again, wasn't a fan of the speed or the Gs, and I got assigned the C-17, thankfully. I'd grown up watching them, and I knew that was what I wanted, and so I was very thankful to get that assignment. Went on from there to fly C-17s for about 3 years at the Air Force, or at Charleston Air Force Base in South Carolina. Flew all over the world, and when I say all the world, all over, from China, Japan, all over the Middle East. Flew to Saudi Arabia, had some time there. I flew into countries, stayed in countries that I never thought I would visit. I will never go back to Saudi Arabia by choice, just to be clear. I don't think they want me back either. And I flew people that I never thought I would fly, like the Secretary of Defense, like the Navy SEAL teams, and like stars, Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans. They wanted to go downrange and support the troops, so they hopped on a C-17. It was wonderful. It was busy. We were gone about 2/3 to 3/4 of the year. So when I found out I would be going to Colorado Springs, I was ecstatic. Now, I already told the people at my table, but I didn't know what I was doing at the Air Force Academy. Didn't know which squadron or what I would be flying, really. So I get to the Air Force Academy, and they tell me I'm going to be flying gliders. So like, I'm doing what? Okay, I'm gonna embrace this. I actually recently went to Squadron Officer School earlier this year. It's a course that every captain in the Air Force goes through. It's about 6.5 weeks, and it's just to re-familiarize the captains with the ways of the Air Force and the ways of leadership in the Air Force. So you're with the same group of 12 people for the majority of the time. So the very first day, of course, you sit in a circle and you talk about who you are and what you do. People go around, they're like, I'm a personnelist, I'm a finance officer, I'm a pilot, I'm a navigator, I'm another pilot, and then it gets to me, I'm like, hey guys, I'm Carrie, and I fly gliders at the Air Force Academy. And their reaction was similar to mine, honestly. When I found out I'd be flying gliders, I was like, the Air Force has gliders? And rated officers fly them? This could be fun. And then, of course, having been at SOS, I had already been in the 94th for a little while, had already learned quite a bit of the heritage. And so, of course, I shared with my flight mates, did you know that we use gliders in World War II? Mind's blown. None of my 12 flight mates had any clue that we had that heritage in the Air Force. That the Air Force, well, the Army Air Corps, sent gliders into combat. Had no clue. And so it is so impressive what this association does with spreading that knowledge and that heritage. And the 94th is very proud to be able to help do that and to explain that heritage, not only to our cadets and our officers, but to share that with the rest of the Air Force as well. So I mentioned that my flight mates were a little astounded, as was I, as I am sure many officers are when they hear about gliders. But it was just such an incredible experience. And it also shows the fact that the Air Force is willing to send rated officers to go fly gliders, which most people would be like, oh, that's not an important job. They're just flying planes with no engines, having fun, doing loops. It's a relaxing assignment. But the fact that the Air Force offers and wants to send rated officers to go do this shows just how important what the 94th does. It is absolutely critical, not just to maintaining this heritage that you guys do so well of cataloging, but to promote it and continue the legacy that has been built. At the 94th, yes, we do fly gliders, but as officers, it is not our focus to become the best glider pilots. Our focus isn't to fly gliders into combat. Unfortunately, fortunately, you can take it either way. Our mission there is we have 3 subsets. We expose, motivate, and challenge. We expose every cadet to our best attempt, every single cadet at the Air Force Academy, and quite a few ROTC cadets to aviation. Now, the Academy doesn't send them to the power program to go fly Cessnas. They don't send them to go be pushed out of an aircraft. They send them to us. And they send them to us because of the soaring program, because of the experience they get there. Soaring, as the glider pilots in here know, is one of the purest forms of flight. They get to truly experience what it is to fly, to glide through the sky, and they have so many different opportunities, not just to experience flight, but to experience what it is to be at an airfield and to be part of a flying community. Sorry, I mixed up my pages a little bit. Colonel Whitmer mentioned the 250 members in our squadron. So we expose all these cadets to different forms of aviation. It's mostly our cadet soaring instructors are the ones that are flying these sorties, giving them the experience, giving them a bird's eye view of their dorm back up at the cadet area. Now our next part of the 94th is to motivate. We want to motivate them not just to come back to the 94th, but to join aviation upon commissioning. And that's not necessarily as a pilot, but possibly as a navigator or an ABM or whatever career field that they find an interest in. We want to motivate them to become more, to pursue more than they may think they have the ability to do. Many of the pilots in here can probably say at some point in time they question their ability to fly, their confidence in flying. Flying helps build that confidence. It helps convince you that you can do what men weren't meant to do, which is be in the air without an engine. So these cadets get this experience, and they leave the airfield just pumped up and ready to go. They want to pursue flying. They want to go off and get their PPL or even their private glider's license. They want more. They get this desire, this passion to fly. And that's a lot of what our cadet soaring instructors pass on, is that passion to fly. The third part is we challenge. It's not just challenging cadets, we challenge our officers as well. But the way we challenge these cadets is we give them the opportunity to become part of the 94th. They get to go through an upgrade program. It is quite extensive and it can be difficult at times, but they go through this and we challenge them to do more than they thought. They thought they couldn't fly a glider. Now they can fly a glider. They thought they couldn't fly it alone. Now they can fly it alone. They thought they couldn't fly it with a student who's probably trying to kill them at any moment. But they can. And that's one of the big things that we challenge them to do. And we challenge them to do more than just the glider. We want them to pursue their passions further. We want them to go to pilot training if they would like that. Go to RPA training if they would rather that, the remote piloted aircraft. We want them to challenge themselves as well. And flying a glider gives them that confidence to go forth and challenge. In order to do these 3 mission subsets, we have various programs at the Academy. Colonel Whitmer mentioned the program that I run, AM 461, Airmanship 461. We also have Airmanship 250, and that's where freshmen in the Academy can come down to the airfield for 10 lessons and get 4 flights in a glider. So these freshmen who are exhausted and would like to sleep at any turn come down to the airfield, and granted, sometimes there's bad weather, kind of like today, they don't get to fly. But on the days that they do get to fly, it is such an incredible morale boost for them. And that's where that expose and motivate part comes into play. Now, they have the option, following their freshman year, to join the program of AM 251. And that is similar to the 250 program during the academic year, where they get to experience flight, they get to experience the airfield, being a part of a flying community, but they also get the chance to solo in the glider. Now, many of these cadets have 0 flight experience. So they go up for 14 flights, and then they get the chance to solo. Again, I'm sure many pilots in here can relate to their very first solo, the freedom that comes with it, and the slight terror that comes with it, and the slight terror your instructor feels watching you take off, especially behind a tow plane. But that confidence it builds is phenomenal, and the just ecstatic joy that the instructor gets to share with that student when the student comes back safely and even greases their landing in, that is a joy that is shared not just by the student, but the instructor and the entire squadron as well. Whether they come down during the academic portion of the year or during the summer, each cadet gets to sit in the front seat of our sailplane. They get to experience flight in a very pure, simple form. And yes, they may be bitten by the desire to fly, and some might learn that they don't have the stomach to fly, and even those that don't have the stomach to fly somehow end up still applying to go further in the glider, and some of them do quite well. But it's those that decide to continue in the 94th, that continue to become cadet soaring instructors. Those are the ones that take on the legacy that's been built by the World War II glider pilots, by the men that are sitting in this very room. They're the ones that embody the legacy and continue to grow it. They take on that camaraderie. They take on the innovation, and they take on the traditions that are embedded within that legacy. Now, I know our cadet soaring instructors talked a little bit about their upgrade at the museum yesterday, but what they didn't tell you is, yes, it is a extensive, time-consuming upgrade, but they're still full-time college students. They are still full-time academy cadets while they're going through this. And you'd think, and now they're full-time upgrade students in the glider. They have 3 full-time jobs. How they manage that is remarkable. Honestly, you would have to ask any of these 3 in this room to quite figure it out. For their upgrade year, they just don't know. They just make it happen. For their upgrade year, it covers 2 semesters, full upgrade year, or full academic year. It covers 80 sorties, about 20 hours of ground training, and many, many, many more hours running wings so that you can stabilize the glider as it takes off, and connecting the ropes from the tow planes to the sailplanes. They spend 12 plus hours a day just doing schoolwork and gliding. And then they still get to go back to the rooms and have 4 to 6 more hours of homework and squadron duties. These cadets put in so much time and effort, but they have to have some sort of example, some sort of idea of how to even pursue this and struggle through this, but struggle through it well. That example, it wasn't set by captains like myself. It wasn't even set by our lieutenant colonels. It was set by the men like these ones sitting in this room here. They set the idea of pursuing through challenge, of continuing despite all of the setbacks that you face. They embody resiliency, and these cadets take it on with pride and run with it. They continuously go back to, well, you know, this was a rough day, but at least I get to land on a normal field, you know, at least it was a good landing. Like, they are able to compare and to recognize, to appreciate the struggles of those in World War II, and are able to apply it to their upgrade experience. So for this upgrade program, I have the privilege to be the officer in charge of turning just your normal everyday cadet into cadet soaring instructors like these three here. In order to be accepted into this upgrade program though, it's not easy. Yes, they have to apply, and they have to sign a letter of commitment, and they have to go through an interview. I've been fortunate, I've gone through 2 summers of interviews now. We always ask one very specific question. We ask other questions, but one very specific question. We ask why. Why do you want to be a cadet soaring instructor with the 94th? The answer isn't usually about, oh, I love flying. It's rarely, I want to leg up going to pilot training. The answer is usually, I want to be part of something more. I want to be part of that camaraderie that I saw at the airfield. I want to spread that passion that my instructor gave to me. I want to be part of something more. That idea is from the heritage of the 94th. It comes from that passion that the World War II glider pilots had, the willingness to step forward and be like, there's a pilot shortage, you want me to fly a glider? I'll do it. Hands down. You took away my engine? No problem, I'll make it happen. That's the attitude we want to see in those that we accept. This year we had almost 200 applicants. There are a lot of interviews. We took almost about a quarter of those applicants and are now working on training them. So of 200, only about 55 had what it takes to become cadet soaring instructors. They embodied what it means to be a glider pilot. The others will have further opportunities to apply, but the 55 that are going through it now, they're in the struggle of it right now, where they're just learning to solo, they're just learning what a check ride might be, they're just learning the importance of knowing their book knowledge. They are learning what it means to be a glider pilot, to pursue the struggle and struggle well, and to face the adversity, face the challenges that we present them, but face them with courage and with dignity. The camaraderie that we see at the airfield is phenomenal amongst the cadet soaring instructors. It's known throughout the academy. They know, oh, you're a soaring instructor, you know all the other soaring instructors. The camaraderie that the applicants always mention, that doesn't stop. It's the kind of camaraderie that builds friendships that last 50, 60, 74 years. It's the kind of camaraderie where they're going to be drawn to each other at all their future academy reunions. It builds those bonds that don't end. That camaraderie, again, we didn't necessarily show it to them, but we gave them the history and we gave them the heritage. They read the books, they watch the videos. They see what it was to be a glider pilot back in World War II. They see what it is to still be here, to stay connected, to make the effort to come out every year and see and share stories again. They want to embody that as well. And they want to share that. They want to continue that idea of camaraderie and pass it on to the students they fly with. Even the freshmen who may not know anything about flight and just wants a good look at the academy, they want to give them that little bit of a bug where, yeah, flying is cool, but what else do we do at the Air Force Academy? What else do we do at the 94th that makes us so different? That camaraderie is what sets us aside. And that is the same camaraderie that I see directly in front of me in this great association. It's the camaraderie that we see in the World War II glider pilots. It's the camaraderie we see amongst their families. Like the camaraderie, there's other traditions that we try to continue embodying. One of the traditions is the G-Wing ceremony. I'm sure many of you got postcards from me earlier this spring. We hold a G-Wing ceremony every spring. We try to make sure that we reach out and incorporate all sorts of other aspects into it. So it's the culminating event of these cadet soaring instructors upgrade. After they finish their 80 sorties, their 20 hours of ground training, their weather days, sitting inside, being woken up by some angry captain. It's at the end of all of that that they get their very own pair of G-Wings. When they're handed their G-Wings, it's not just another set of wings. It is preceded by the story of where the G-Wings came from. Why are G-Wings so important? Why is it that people say G is for guts? The postcards that I sent and people sent back, a lot of them simply said G is for guts. And until this year, I had honestly never heard that. So we incorporated that into this year's G-Wing ceremony. And actually, the association sponsored a new award at the 94th. And it is the G is for Guts Award. And it's presented to the cadet that truly embodies that mentality, where they show the drive, the determination, the grit to continue past all obstacles. That's the cadet that gets the G is for Guts Award. And the G that is in the middle of their wings, they learn what it truly means. The G wings, these 3 cadets, they have them on their chest now. You can look at them, they're not the same as the ones in the past. They're very shiny, but they still mean the same thing. And these cadets wear them very proudly. Not just because of what they went through their upgrade year, not just because they were able to pass a check right. They wear them because of what came before, because of the others that have worn the G-Wings in the past. They love hearing about the heritage. They love the meaning of those wings on their chest, and they wear them very, very proudly. I hope as you guys get more postcards, you'll see them again in the springtime. We hope that you join us. We would love to have more of you there. I know we had quite a few there this year, but the more the merrier. It would be such an honor for the entirety of our squadron, not just the active duty officers or the reservists, but the entirety of our cadet soaring instructor corps as well, to hear these first-hand accounts, to hear the stories that we share with them, and just to put a name to the face, or a name to the story, a face to the story. We would love for them to be able to truly know what their heritage is behind a troop carrier unit. The G is for Guts Award will continue throughout the years. So we would love if you have any input about the G is for Guts, or if you would like to continue writing back with those postcards, please do. The cadets love them, and the officers love reading them even more. Another tradition that we continue about this legacy that has been set before us is innovation. Obviously, it was no simple task in getting a glider ready for combat and training pilots to fly gliders. It required a lot of creative ways to get a glider over an ocean, across a channel, into enemy territory, with a ton of cargo. That innovation, that innovative thinking, is very much prevalent in our squadron now. We have so many projects that we continuously pursue, not because we need to go fight a war, but because we know that we can do better. We know that we can continue improving, because we saw in World War II, these pilots and maintainers, they weren't handed anything easy. They had to work, they had to be creative and come up with some very ingenious ways to make a glider possible, a combat glider possible. Some of the projects that we're working on include creating a whole new building, include making simulator-like devices for our students to train with, and even incorporating virtual reality into those. And one of the new innovative ideas is also how to produce a pilot training ready student. So having a cadet soaring instructor go from the academy ready to hit pilot training, or even ready to hit another airframe. Those are all wonderful ideas and very innovative, but obviously take a lot of work. With 250 people in the squadron, a lot of them being cadet soaring instructors, we look to these cadet soaring instructors a lot for how can we think outside the box? What do you think we should do here? It's another way that we challenge them. And be surprised, or maybe not so surprised, they come up with a lot of really, really good ideas. Even with this whole virtual reality idea, it wasn't an officer that flew the flight to get the footage for virtual reality. It was a cadet soaring instructor. They are so invested in these projects. They are so invested in the innovation. They are invested in the legacy that comes before it. They have a true interest in pursuing and continuing to grow that legacy. With aerobatic gliders and virtual reality and far more resources in training than was available in World War II, the environment we fly gliders in now is vastly different than, say, 74 years ago, but there's still a lot of similarities. The cadets that fly them, they're, 19, 20, 21-year-old young adults, I won't say kids, young adults, and we trust them to go. We give them a $250,000 aircraft and another 18-year-old kid, young adult, and we let them take a glider, airborne. Have fun, be safe, be smart, go. The glider pilots of World War II, they weren't much older, if not, they might have been even younger. These cadets handle it well. They are not like most 19-year-olds you will generally encounter in today's world. They are far more mature, far more resilient, but that's because they have an example to follow that was set years and years ago by the men sitting in this room. The pilots who fly gliders today still uphold that sense of grit, that sense of camaraderie with one another. They still have a strong desire for tradition and yet being innovative. These pilots also still share the same passion for flying as the ones in World War II did. Today, the gliders we fly have only 2 seats, only weigh about 1,000 pounds, do not go into combat. But the young adults that fly them possess the same drive and determination, that same desire to be more, to do more, to go further, to be a part of something more. The grit that was shown in World War II, the guts that were required to fly a plane with no engine into combat, reminds these cadets that they are capable of more than they believe. And as a plus, hearing these stories these last 2 days, they're also reminded they have it quite a bit easier than those in World War II. So thank you. Thank you to those members of the troop carrier units in World War II. Thank you to the men who flew the CG-4A and the C-47. Thank you to the women and the families that supported them and made their commitment and their sacrifices possible. And thank you to both the veterans and this association for entrusting us with the honor of continuing the great legacy that you've built. We will proudly share this heritage and will most certainly make sure that your legacy is never forgotten. Thank you.